welcome everyone. So this will be a tutorial. I'm supposed to do a tutorial. And it will be about something called behavior-driven development. And I will use a tool called Cucumber and the Java implementation of it. So the agenda will be that I will talk a little bit about the tool, and then I'll implement an example where I actually use it to drive an implementation. And then I will try to point at some of the weaknesses using this tool. So I hope you will enjoy it. The slides will be available at SlideShare afterwards. The source code will be available at GitHub, and the my manuscript, which is this, will be available on my blog when I've edited it a little bit more. It's a little bit rough at the moment. So you don't have to take a lot of notes if you don't want to. You can find everything, all resources will be available online afterwards. If you have any questions, please ask them more or less directly. I will, however, probably not see if you raise your hands, because there are really, really strong lights in the back. I can't see you guys. I think you're here, but I can't really see you. I can hear you. That's good. And I wonder if we should close the door in the back or not. Never mind. Right, so let's get started. Behavior-driven development. Why should we do it? Another question is, how should we do it? And the final question, and perhaps the most important question, is, when should we do it? Should we do it all the time or something else? So let's start with the why. Why is, in many cases, always the most interesting question to ask. Why do we do anything? Sometimes we do it because it's fun, sometimes we do it because our manager told us so, and I don't know. So why should we do behavior-driven development? There are a couple of different reasons, but the most important reason that I can think of is, to be honest, communication. And communication always depends on the audience. Sometimes it's really good to communicate with people using code. Sometimes it's really useful to communicate using other ways, which is not code but can be translated into code, perhaps. So it all depends on the audience. I expect that there is a lot of developers here, so I expect that if I show you some unit tests, for example, you will be able to understand parts of it. But if I show a unit test to, why not, a good friend of mine here, living here in Krakow, who doesn't know anything about programming, then she would not be able to read it, but she would be able to read some examples that I will show you. So it all depends on the audience. We have some kind of system that we want to enhance or perhaps even create. And we can use it using BDD, and we can implement it using TDD. These are pretty much the same thing, to be honest. Test-driven development or behavior-driven development is driving an implementation using tests in both cases. But BDD is perhaps more business-facing than TDD, which is more developer-facing. So this guy, who I think might be an accountant or something, he might not like to read unit tests and say that this is correct or this is not correct. This guy, on the other hand, might enjoy unit tests. So it all depends on the receiver of the message. But anyone, it doesn't really matter if you're a developer or if you're an accountant or whatever you are, you can probably read and understand this. An example. So we have some kind of scenario that we want to work. And then we set up the system. So we have some kind of precondition. Then we actually use it. And then we try to observe whatever change there were. We don't really know how it's implemented. We don't really care. We're interested in the behavior, not the implementation. And anyone can read this, almost anyone at least. There could, of course, be cases where the receiver don't read English. That's not a problem. We can translate this into many different languages. I actually don't know how many at the moment. Last time I checked, there were like 40, 45 something. So, and we can check that later. Please remind me that we should check if it is possible to write these scenarios in Polish. I know that it's possible to write them in Swedish. I know that it's possible to write them in Norwegian. One of the guys behind this tool is from Norway, so he's translated to Norwegian. So, an example, and any reasonable person should be able to read this. And then we can use it to discuss how should it work. Suppose that we have a very simple case, calculator. So we have some kind of addition scenario. So what are the preconditions? Well, the calculator has to be running. So in the given part here, we are able to prepare this calculator, that is, start some kind of program, then feed it with, in this case, a couple of numbers, and then check the end result. We don't really care how the calculator is implemented. We care about the behavior. It should be able to add these numbers. And this, if you give this to any user, and you show them how they can run the system, which may be very magic for them, you might have to use, I don't know, I will be using Maven in this example, but tools like that are mysterious for your average customer. But if they if they change this number, for example, then this one should break. And they can do that and verify that, yes, we are actually running this and nothing else. That's valuable, because then we can discuss it and communicate using this as the communication media. This is another example. We have some kind of shopping system. And if you select something and then add it to a shopping cart, then you should be able to verify that it actually exists in the shopping cart. Very easy to understand, hopefully not that very hard to implement, but very easy to discuss. If we add something to a shopping bag and it's not there, well, is that a bug or a feature? That's probably a bug. Or something like this. This is part of the stuff that I will implement later on. I'm going to implement some kind of email marketing system where you should be able to subscribe to marketing emails. That is, you're subscribing to spam. But if you like that, then this system is great for you, because then I can spam you and perhaps force you to buy stuff, and I will be very rich. Or something else. So this is an example of actually a complete feature that we could implement. We have two scenarios. We have some kind of user story. Yeah. Anyone can read this. With some luck, they can also understand it. Subscription, for example. I want to subscribe to receive important market information. Okay, so we prepare something that will be able to receive this subscription. Someone is signing up for it. So if you enter a valid email address, then you should get a welcome message. We don't really know a lot about this. We don't know how the welcome message should look like, but we know that we should get some kind of greeting. And we also know that we should enter a valid email address. So I used my own address just to have something to test with. And we also know that if you try to subscribe with an invalid email address, then that shouldn't work. Not very hard to implement with some luck, but easy to discuss. And then there's a problem of validating email addresses, and that's not that easy. Some of the sponsors here, they had some kind of game. You should sign up using your email address. They validated that there was an @ in it, and only that. So I was able to suggest an email address that was clearly broken, but yeah, they just verified it a little bit. And I shouldn't say that they're bad people, because they are validating pretty much as the way I will validate the email address today as well. So 2 scenarios: happy path, unhappy path. And you should probably have more of the unhappy path, but it's not certain that you should implement them as a scenario here. That could probably be better, done better if you use a unit test, where you can alter something and have a lot of different broken email addresses that you will verify. Anyhow, this is easy to discuss and hopefully easy to understand. We are always interested in bringing some kind of value. We should always be interested in bringing some kind of value to the business. And the question is, how can we find a real business value? Is it something that we should try to find as developers? I said that that could vary a little bit. Sometimes you should, sometimes perhaps you shouldn't. But if you have to, and if you want to ask the guys that actually want something, ask them why. Behave like a kid. Ask them why again, and again, and again. And after a while, you would probably have found some example of a really good business value, and then try to express them as an example. Because there is nothing so annoying as a good example. You can't really discard them. This is a real life example, it's valid, well, live with it. So, examples are good. But what kind of business value are we actually looking for then? Well, I would say that probably something from this list. And I'm not sure if the order here is correct or not. I just changed it this morning because I decided that managed costs, that's boring. Let's put that at the end. Increase revenue, that's good. Or protect revenue, that's good. Or increase brand value or make the product remarkable, that's really nice things. Or provide more value for customers. Manage costs, yeah, I guess so, but it's kind of boring, isn't it? Right? So how should we express ourselves? Imperative, or should we do it declarative? Well, what is the difference? Imperative, we tell something how it should be done. I mean, Java is an imperative language. We say, do this, do that, and then do that. Declarative, we define what we expect and nothing else. Pretty much as SQL. If you write a SQL statement, you don't really know how it will be interpreted or implemented. You just define the properties that the result set should have. So that's a case where we use declarative quite often. Choosing from these two depends a lot, and it depends on the changes that may or may not occur. But we know that changes will occur. So therefore, try to be declarative if you can. Discuss what we expect and don't discuss how to implement stuff. And that's really important when we talk with real customers, for example, or something that is almost real customers, because they don't really know how you should implement stuff. They don't know what a hash table is. They don't know how a for loop behaves. And they don't care, because that's not important. It's never important for the end user if we use the for loop or while loop. Don't even discuss it with them. So details, keep away from the details. Talk about what we should expect. In a specific situation, what is the expected outcome given these inputs? So an example could be these two features. where this one is my attempt to make something very imperative. So we should subscribe with a valid email address. Nothing strange. Given that I open up my browser and then point to a specific address, that's very imperative. Then I type an address in the text area with an ID called EP. Very, very imperative. And then press some button, and then be forwarded to some place, and then see some kind of welcome message in a specific div. This is how things could look like, given that a developer is allowed to write the feature files, and without them validating them with the customers. The customer won't understand anything from this. Your average customer don't know what a div is. They don't know what a text area is. They can imagine, but they will definitely not know what a div is. So I think this is a lot better. This says pretty much the same thing. And we can hide the implementation details in the code later on. So the details will be there, but they won't be very visible for the end users. So I want to subscribe to something. Okay, so this means that we will use some kind of magic and make sure that we can enter some kind of address. And then enter that address, and then verify. So given something, when I enter a new address, then we should see a change. This is discussing the behavior, not the implementation. So this is good, that one is not. As simple as that. And it's very simple to say. It's very easy to say. It's not that easy to do. But if we do this, then we can use behavior-driven development to build the right thing. And this will create some kind of confidence that it actually behaves as our customers want or need. And if we spend a little bit on that one, so BDD can help us build the right thing. TDD will probably help us build it the right way. So I don't say that we should use either or. I won't use any TDD today, but test-driven development is actually probably the best thing that has ever happened, at least in my professional career, to be honest. Okay, so that was a little bit of why. How do we do this then? Well, let's start with the communication part. So if you're a developer and don't collect or don't talk to the customers, then this might not apply to you. But hopefully you are able to communicate with your users. So this is you will be able to apply this. So let's find the right persons. And who are the right persons then? Well, this could be some kind of product owner or business analyst. They are the guys that knows what we should do, hopefully. Then we have someone from QA, a tester, if we have separate testers, and I think that there is value of having that. I do think that they shouldn't be a different department or something. They should be part of the development teams, but people that are professional testers, they have a very specific mindset. They don't think like a developer. They are thinking, how can I break this? Where we developer tends to think, how can I implement this? And then forget about all the nasty edge cases. A professional tester loves the edge cases, and will do whatever it takes to break the system. A professional tester could probably walk into a bar, order one beer, order 9,000 beers, minus one beer, and then order full bar, and see what happens. Your software developer, he will go to the bar, he will order 3 or 4 beers, get drunk, and be happy. About that. So there is a difference. So gather these guys. There are 4 here. I think these could be the same persons. And this is pretty much what Goiko Adik is talking about when he talks about the three amigos that should gather and then talk or discuss what should the system actually do. So you discuss examples, and then you get a shared understanding that everyone can agree on. And then document these as features or scenarios. And remember that the requirement can consist of a lot of different small scenarios. A scenario is just a small use case, or part of a use case in some cases. Okay, so how does all of this actually work? How can we translate these sentences that actually follow a specific format, but how can we translate them into code? Well, all of these systems, and there are many of them, behaves pretty much like this. Just for the record, I mean, we're going to use Cucumber today, but you could use Robot Framework. You could use Fitness, or Fit, but I don't think you use Fit anymore. You probably use Fitness. What could you use more then? Oh, I don't even remember. But you could use RSpec, is another version of it. There are many different tools out there, but they all behave more or less this way, the same way. We have some kind of feature. We want to execute this one, so therefore we need to implement some kind of glue between the feature and the system under test, the production code. So this is the feature file that we showed you. This is some kind of glue that will connect them to the system under test, and that's where a lot of the work will be done today. And then finally, you will build some kind of production system or have a production system. So this is just stuff that we use for developing, and this is what we actually want to deliver afterwards. Okay, so we execute specification. Therefore, we try to run the system under test. We try to observe some kind of change. Looking for a message, I don't know where, but looking at return values, some kind of change that we can observe. And then we assert that change. So this feature will pass or it will break. And don't write this without the asserts. That's just annoying and creating problems. That's pretty much as writing a unit test without assert. You can do that. You will increase your code coverage, and every real developer will hate you forever. Not a good idea. Okay, so it's time to do some live coding. But before I do that, let me just recap what we'll try to do. I will build some kind of email marketing system, that is, a spam system. Users should be able to sign up so they can receive market information about interesting products. And some people like that, some people don't. But this is what I'm going to do. Right. So how should I do this? I have prepared something on GitHub, which is just a shell where I have prepared with a really small example. So let me clone this one and then implement something. Let me steal a snippet of code here, so I don't have to type, because that's risky. Right. This means that we have some kind of email marketer here, and if anyone can come up with a better name, please help me. This is the hardest thing within computer science, coming up with good names. Right, so what do we have here? A pretty small project. I decided that it should be a GNU licensed project. So if you want to share this with anyone or clone it, which I invite you to do, then you must share it with anyone else. And remember, sharing is caring, so feel free to do so. I'm going to use Maven to run this. So let's start with just verifying that it actually builds. Come on. Okay, so it built. Perfect. It doesn't really do anything because there is no source code here. But let me open up IDEA and see what we can do with this. There we go. Let's open it in this window. Okay. And I hope that we can that you can read this even in the back. So let's start with the POM. Whoa. Yeah, this is my presentation mode. I hope you can read it. Or what's the suggestion?
Suggestion was to use the feature presentation.
The suggestion is to use the feature presentation mode. I've never done that before, and I don't want to try it live on stage. Sorry. I will do that some other time. Anyhow, this is a small not a class, but small project file. And let me ask, how many in here is using Maven? Okay, so like half of you. Then this is not something new for you. The rest of you guys, this is a project definition file that we can use that will define that we will create a jar file with this name. We will have a couple of different dependencies that are needed for the project. That is, I want to make sure that I have access to Cucumber, and I need a Cucumber-JUnit module as well, or library, so I can run it from JUnit. And therefore, I also need to bundle JUnit, or I need access to JUnit. That's all, and that's all we're going to need today. So 3 different dependencies. Right. So let's start with creating a home for the source code. And that should live in source and main, and then Java. But this was not the way I wanted it to do it, so I want to do the test stuff first. I plan to write this test first, so therefore I will start out with the test stuff. And now I would like IDEA to re-import this, but I think I'll do that by hand. Re-import. There. These are now recognized as the production code, and this is the test code. So now I can say that I would like to create a package here, and I'm going to call this sc thinkcode.jdd, where thinkcode is the name of my company. And to be able to connect Cucumber with feature files, I need some kind of runner. So I will add a Java class that I will call run Cukes test, and I will call it test, so the test runners that is available both in IDEA and Maven will be able to pick it up. Otherwise it could just be called run Cukes. And yes, I do want to add it to Git. Don't ask again, that's okay. Right, so what should I do to connect this to Cucumber, or actually, how should I make sure that this one is able to execute the feature files? Well, I will use a specific JUnit runner, So I will run this, run with, and then the name of a JUnit runner. So I will use Cucumber class, like that. This means that when we start JUnit, or when we run this test, then we will use the Cucumber implementation. And that will allow me to locate feature files, try to find the corresponding implementations for each sentence in the feature file, and then do something with them. So this is all we need to be able to connect between the feature files and the production code, or the test code that will then connect to the production code. Let me rerun this and see what happens. Okay, so we have a build success, but we can also see that nothing really happened. But that's good, because then we didn't break anything, and that's obviously positive. Okay, so with this fixed, let me commit this one. What did I do? I added a Cucumber runner, perhaps? Should we commit and push? Yeah, why not? I can share this with you guys right away. Oh! Ah. Okay, so our first commit is live. If you're interested, you can look at it, but do it later. Right, so next thing is to make sure that we implement some kind of feature that will force us to implement subscribe. I will implement unsubscribe a little bit later, because that will force me to do more things. But let me create a home for the feature file. And I will place that in resources, like that. When I add stuff into resources, this means that they will be available on the class path if we use Maven. And in this case, the test class path, which is very good because the feature file has to live in the same package or sub-package as the runner. So I will have to place my feature files in something called SE Think Code JDD, or a sub-package. So let me create that. And I have to create a directory, and I wonder if I can do it like this. I could. Perfect. Right, so now I would like to add a file here. And what would be a good name? Let me call it subscribe feature. Like that. And let me add this content to it. So what do we have here? We have a feature file that will describe one or a few features that we actually want the system to do. I have added, well, let's start with the syntax. We must start with feature. Or actually, we could start with something defining the language before. So if we would like to do this in Polish, we would have to add a language tag in the top of the feature file. But default is English. So when I use English, then I don't have to do anything there. Then a feature where I will try to describe what this one should do. Quite short, quite brief, one sentence. You shouldn't put an essay here, because this is just something that we want to understand. We want to read it and understand pretty quickly what we actually should do. And then I can do whatever I want. I can leave it blank. It's okay to leave it like this. But I think it's better not to. So I use the format of user stories that Liz Keogh has suggested, which try to emphasize on business value more than anything else. So in order to be able to receive important marketing messages, okay, so this is what we want to achieve. As a marketing message receiver, I should be able to register my email. And we could rephrase this as marketing message receiver. Oh, I don't even remember the member format. Could someone help me? No. You don't do user stories. Okay, never mind. This should hopefully define what we want to achieve in a way that we can understand, so it brings business value. Yeah, as a something, I want something so that I can do something. Yeah, that's the format. In this case, we can do whatever we want here. This is just a large comment. Then we have something that is a keyword. A scenario should always start with scenario colon. And there I would like to describe, again, quite short, one sentence, what we actually are looking for here. And then we have a set of sentences, given, when, then. So given something, when something, then should something happen. These are yellow because IDEA can't find any corresponding steps that we should try to locate and run. So these are things that will be translated into method names later on. Okay, so this is a good start, I hope, at least. We have a couple of keywords here that are important. We have the feature, we have the scenario, given, when, then. And given is where we set up stuff, when is where we use it, then is where we assert things. Right, so let's see what happens when I try to run this. And yeah, I can run it from IDEA, I suppose. So let me run it from here. I can run the test, or I can run all features. So I run all the tests, because then I will be able to run not just that specific test. If I add unit tests later on, I will be able to run all of them at the same time. So tests are good. And we're building something, and we got a green bar. Perfect. So everything is nice. Although, no, this wasn't good. This wasn't really good. I'll do it from here instead. So this will do the same thing as I just did from IDEA. I will build the system, and I will run the tests. But when I do it here, it will hopefully be a little bit easier to see the log statements that passed by, which we are going to use. So this one was a build success. Everyone is happy. We can go home. But it turns out that no, we can't, because we are missing a lot of steps. We have 2 scenarios. We should have like 6 steps, but they are all undefined. But we are given a snippet of code here that we can use to implement the missing steps. And if I do that, then we should be able to find them, and we should be able to do something intelligent with them. So let me try to copy this. How can I do that? Obviously not like this. No, this wasn't a good idea. Hey, scroll. Thank you. Right. So these are snippets that I can use to get started when I want to implement the steps that we actually need. So let me copy them. Let me go back to IDEA, and let me implement our first step. I could do that in this package, or I could do it in sub-package. And I want to do it in sub-package because then I can hide some of the details a little bit. They're not necessary all the time, so I will hide them in a package that I call steps, like that. And then I'd like to create a Java class that will call subscribe steps. Yeah, that's good enough. And I will paste the suggested steps here and see what happens. So I need to do some imports. I need to import this one. I need to import pending exception, and we should use the Cucumber version of it, not Sun Security something. And yeah, that's it. We have a green dot here. Everything is great. It will probably compile. Looking at this, we can see that it probably won't do anything useful. We would throw exceptions everywhere. There are some comments here that could be good to know something about. We have some kind of regular expressions here that will match the steps with this method. So this is the way we will find the corresponding step. Someone will run this regular expression and locate the correct step in a feature file. It's as easy as that. And we can see that we have some kind of snake-cased method name here. This could be anything, as we know. I will probably not even try to change it, because I've realized that I don't even read the method names anymore. They're just a placeholder. What I read is this regular expression, which is much more, tells me much more. Okay, so let's run this again and see what happens now. We have a build success. I was planning to take a break, and I was planning to set my timer, and I forgot to set my timer. I will take a break in a few minutes. I'm not sure if you need it, but I'm sure that I need it. And I will take 5 minutes. So anyone not interested, you can do whatever you want, and if you need to go to the bathroom, you will have time for that. But before I do that, let's see what happened now when I ran this. We get a lot of to-do implement me. And these are the result of these pending exceptions. So they won't break the build. They will, however, log a lot of to-dos. Well, we can use them in our advantage and actually implement something more or less useful. Okay, so yeah, I think it's time, a reasonable time to take a break now. So it's 11:44. Let's start again at 11:50. So 6 minutes. I will start no matter if you're here or not. Now it's working. Perfect. And I wish I could do this whistling with the fingers, but I can't. It would be useful sometimes. Right. So, taking a break is obviously dangerous. Half of the audience left. They won't be able to see the finish. Maybe they weren't interested. Maybe I don't really care. They may do whatever they want. Okay. So where were we? I had just pasted the suggested snippets into the new class, subscribe steps, and now I'm wondering what I should continue with. So let's take a look at the feature and see what are we really looking for. Oh, did you notice? It used to be yellow. Now there are corresponding steps. So IDEA has realized that we have steps that will be executed, although we saw that they didn't do anything useful, so we need to do something about it. Okay, so let's start with this one. Given I want to subscribe to important market information, that should set up something. When I enter an email address, then we should be able to observe some kind of message. Okay. As I said previously, I'm going to do this test first. And since I'm a lazy bastard, I will do it as little as possible. And the smallest thing that possibly could work in this case, or at least I think so at the moment, would be to, let's drill down to that one. Not do anything here. That's easy. I enter valid email address. Well, I can, and then I should be able to observe some kind of message, a welcome message, right? So the simplest possible solution that could work would be to assign to an instance variable some kind of message, and then just verify that that message has been assigned. So let's start there. Let's do message equals, we said it should be a welcome message, welcome, like that. And then we can just assert true that message contains a string and welcome. Although this won't compile because message isn't defined, let's create a field message as a string. Okay. And should be dot contains, not anything else. Welcome. Assert true has to be imported. So let's do a static method import for assert true. And then we would like to have some kind of meaningful message when this one breaks. And I guess the welcome message should contain welcome, and it contained something else, that is message. Something like this. And maybe I should have used that presentation mode because it's hard to read when I have these long lines. At the same time, there is a reason why I shouldn't have long lines, so yeah. Let's see, will this run? I think it will, but I'm interested in seeing what will the error message look like. So I will start with breaking this. And so let's negate this one because I think it will work. And let's take a look at the error message to see if I actually understand what it says. Okay. That wasn't really easy to see either. How can I change it? Okay, so it says the welcome message should contain welcome, and it contained welcome. Okay, so this should perhaps not be a red bar, it should be green. So let me fix that. And let me ask you guys, if I change the settings, will you be able to read anyway? If I change from my presentation mode to my laptop mode, will you be able to read in the back? It's not great, but it's better. So the guys in the back, are you able to read this? Yes. Then I'll switch to this one instead. It's still a really long line, so maybe I should just cut it like this. Okay. So what do we have here? Well, this is obviously fake. But as an amateur, but still a musician, I know one thing. Fake it until you make it. That's the way to survive if you are playing at Las Vegas, for example. Fake it. You have to be able to play every tune in every key, and that's not easy, but fake it. You will make it after a while. The same goes here. This is obviously useless and just rubbish, but it's a start. Okay, so if we run this, then what happened? Well, what happened was that we have a red bar, and I will rerun this and see that we might get a green bar. Yes, we did. But it's still a little bit upset, so let's see if we can understand. Yeah, we have a pending exception, implement me. So let's implement the next scenario and see if we can get a green bar. When I enter an invalid address, I just read this one, I enter an invalid address, then we should get an error message. Okay, so it's pretty much the same thing here. So I can steal that one, and I can reuse it here. And maybe I should say there was an error subscribing. Error, 2 bars, like that. And then do some kind of assert. Right? Assert through the welcome message. Nope. Assert that the error message contains error. Perhaps this is better. It contained. Yeah, and then let's keep welcome and see what happens. This should break. Yes, it broke. Should contain error. It contained. There was an error subscribing. Okay, but we know that we actually didn't check for error. I checked for welcome. So let me change this one. So I'm doing a small change, verifying it, and now I know that this is the only thing that could break or make this test. We have a green bar, everything passed. We don't even have any complaints here. Perfect. Although this implementation, if you're nice, then I would say that it sucks. And that's being nice. Let's do something some people sometimes call test-driven development as if you meant it. So I'm going to refactor this in a really small step and then see where we end up. So I'm going to create a validate method. And extract a method that I call validate email, validate address, email address, like that. And then that one will return welcome. Okay. I would like to do the same thing here. So I'm going to do that, but it turns out that this doesn't really work, so I need to really catch the email address that we are receiving here. And how can I do that? Well, there is a very simple trick that is used in Cucumber, and that is creating a group, a regular expression group. So let's do that. This group will catch whatever this one matches and add it as a method, a parameter to this method. So let me do that, and let me call this one address. So whatever comes here will end up here. That's good, because now I can do something clever with it. I can use this one as an argument here. Address, okay, so I have to pick it up here. String address, like that. And then we could do something with this welcome message. We could say welcome and to this address. That's nice. I don't think this will break anything, but let's try it out. There we go. Perfect, it worked. But given this, I can now validate the address for real. So I can use the same validation. I can use the same validation here. But I have to fetch the email address first. So I'm going to create a group that matches any characters. Send it as a parameter here. And then send it to that one. Okay, I'm going to keep the message. And let's do a check here. If address contains something really simple and needed in an email address, an @ sign, then this is valid. And we will welcome this guy. Else, we will not. Oh. No. I'm sitting too much on a PC, so I don't even know my own keyboard sometimes. There we go. With some luck, this will work, and we are validating something, and we are getting 2 different messages. It did. So let me see if I can change something. I enter valid email address here. Let's change this one to an invalid address and see what happens. Let's replace this @ sign with the dot. Then we should not get a welcome message. And it broke. Hooray. Now, I think that we can say that we know that this is actually executed. Because I did just one change. I changed that one from an @ to a dot. And then run it again. Perfect. Okay, are we done here? I think we could be, but at the same time, it would be nice to not just have a step class. So let me add some production code and see if we can do something useful with it. And I will create the package that I call sc.thinkcode.jdd. And in that package, I will create a class that I call subscriptions. Yeah, subscriptions. And when should we validate? I think we should validate when we sign up. That's a reasonable time to validate stuff. So I will do some refactoring. I will move this to the subscription. I will add a method subscribe that will call this one and return something valuable. This means that we have to create the system, the production system. So now all of a sudden we have use for this method. So let's create subscriptions. Yeah. As what? As a new subscription. Okay, I was expecting this not to be yellow, red. Why is it red? Because I have misspelled this one. Subscriptions. Import this class. Yes. Okay, and then please create a field for it, like that. So whenever I run this, then we will set up the production system here, and then we will be able to use it. So let's do that. Let's extend these subscriptions with a sign up method. Subscriptions, and then subscribe. And what should we subscribe with? Well, we should subscribe with the address, like that. Let's create this method. Void subscribe string and address. Perfect. I have enhanced my my idea, so I always throw not implemented exception. This means that I can't run this, or I can't forget about this one if I use it. Okay, right, and when we do that, then we should validate stuff. This means that the subscriptions should perhaps set this message so we can verify it later. Like that. But it doesn't return something valuable, so let me return a string here. Something like that. Before I do anything more, let's run this and see what happens. Oh, a not implemented exception. I'm not very surprised. But this means that we are actually calling this method. That's not bad. Then we know that. Okay, so let's move on. Let's make sure that we do the validation in that method. Sorry, in that class, not method. And we need this method for it. And we should not set the message here. We should actually return something. So let me return this, or let me return that, meaning that this one has to return a string, right? Now we have to call it. So let's call it from here. Let's call it with the address. And we should return something. So let's return whatever we got from that one. Something like that. Okay, this means that the steps broke because validate email address doesn't even exist anymore. Let's remove that one. It also means that we should do a subscribe on an invalid address, like that. Okay, let's run this and see what happens. It passed. So what have we done now? Well, let's take a look at the changes. We have added a feature file. And these are the changes. Well, we added all of it. We added subscribe steps. And these are all the changes here. Yeah. So we implemented something where we pick up a call and then try to verify something from it. And we added an embryo of the production system that will hold our subscriptions. It's not much at the moment, but it's a start. And it runs. And I would be able to, I would say that if we check the code coverage, which we can do just for fun, I think we should see that we have 100% method, 100% lines. Whoa. That's not too bad, is it? Although I'm not convinced that code coverage is a valuable measurement. But I can use it for my own sake, and I can see that we are actually using these methods, and we are also verifying all the paths. There are 2 paths that we could verify, and they are executed. Nice. Okay, so let me commit this. What did I do? I added the subscription feature. So let's do a commit and push. Yeah, push this one. This is great. I don't think we will come any further with this feature because it works. It doesn't do anything. We don't really verify stuff. But let's add another feature that will force us to implement unsubscribe. That will force us to actually store the email addresses, and that will give us opportunities to a lot of different and more or less interesting things. So let's add an unsubscribe feature, and let me not scroll that way, but instead scroll this way. So I added in the same package as the run Qux test, or a sub-package, and it's just a file, and it's called unsubscribe feature. The content should be something like this. And we can see that we don't have matching steps because the steps are yellow. But what are we looking at here? Let's see. Unsubscribe for our email marketing service. I mean, that's pretty nice, isn't it? How many email marketing services can you subscribe from? I don't know. Spammers, they tend not to allow you to unsubscribe, but we are. That's nice. We have some kind of user story that tells us why we're doing this. In order to be a good marketing service, we want to allow our subscribe to unsubscribe from something that I can't read. As a marketing message receiver, I should be able to unregister my email address. Okay? That's being a good citizen, I think. I think that's being a good citizen. Okay, so unsubscribe, and therefore with a valid and an invalid address. Happy path, unhappy path. So given I have subscribed, okay, when I do unsubscribe, then I should get a goodbye message. And this address should be unsubscribed. So we got a new keyword here. We have got the keyword and, which will translate just into another annotation. And I think it actually will be turned into a then annotation. It doesn't really matter, because all of these, given, when, then, and there's also but, which I don't use here, they are treated equally. They're not magic in any sense. They're just a way to hold a regular expression so we can search for the steps. Okay, right. We are missing the steps, and that's because we haven't implemented them. I can do this in different ways, but let me run it from IDEA so I will get some snippets to start with. That makes my life a little bit easier. We have a green bar. Everything was hunky-dory and worked, although we can't find some steps. But these are the suggestions for the missing steps. So let me copy this, and let me add it to a step class. So I will create a new class that I will call unsubscribe steps. Is there anything I want to say with this? Well, yeah, I can say that it doesn't really matter. We could have all the steps in one class, or we could divide them in many different classes. Doesn't matter, because all of these steps that are implemented, these, for example, they're global. They're available to Cucumber wherever you want to call them. And that may sound a little bit disturbing. We know that global variables and global methods are bad. They often are. In this case, they are not that bad. And the reason for this is that we are describing our system using this feature. If we would describe our system with using the exact same words that mean different things, then we have a much bigger problem than global methods. So if I describe two different parts of the system using the exact same words and expect different behavior from them, then I have a problem. And Cucumber will act as a whistleblower in that case, and you will get informed about it. So globals, in this case, they aren't that bad. Okay? Right, so let's see what we got now. Now I have the unsubscribe steps. I executed this and I copied them. Let me paste them here. And when I do that, I need to import a lot of stuff, pretty much the same thing I did previously. And given, yes. Okay, what am I missing? Ah, look at this. We have two methods with the same name. Where's the other one? There. Unsubscribe and unsubscribe. And that's because it's hard to differentiate between valid or invalid email address when the snippets were created. So I have a duplication here. And I can't have that, so I'll remove one of them. That one. Great. We have a green dot. This will probably work, although we have a lot of pending exceptions and stuff, so yeah, we have to fix that. So let me work my way from the top to the bottom. I know that I want to catch this email address, and catching something, parameter, is done using the groups, in regular expressions. And I don't know, I usually have the view that if you have a problem, and then you solve it using regular expressions, you have two problems. I don't know almost anything about regular expressions, but I learned enough so that I can catch what I want in Cucumber. Yeah, this method name, we don't have to have that email address there, so I'll remove it. We want to catch this email address, and let's call it address again. And what are we doing here? I have subscribed for a marketing service with my email and then something. Okay, so this feels to me that we have to make sure that we are subscribing to the service. Okay, and in order to be able to subscribe, I will need to create subscriptions. So the class holding the subscriptions. So let's do that. Like that. And I want to sign up or subscribe using the address here, like that. Okay, and then I should be able to unsubscribe. Okay, this means that I need access to subscriptions later, so I'll make sure that that is a field in this class, like that. Okay, so I should be able to unsubscribe. Let's catch the parameter again, group and regular expression, like that. Doesn't have to be there. And then let's get that one in a string, like that. Unsubscribe. This means that we need a new method on the subscriptions. And let me call that unsubscribe. And what are we unsubscribing? Well, this address, like that. Okay. Let's create that method. Yeah, this is good enough. I want this one to be at the end. Okay, so I'm unsubscribing. I should get the goodbye message. Okay, this means that this one has to catch some kind of message so that I can verify later on. So message, it's not defined, so let's create the string. Not void. Let's create a message like that. Oh, something like that. Okay, unsubscribe. Oh, it doesn't return something, so let's return string. And we know that this will blow up. So I'm thinking, shouldn't I run this? I don't know. Okay, so we should get the goodbye message. So we should get some kind of message that says goodbye, I suppose. Assert true. And what should we get? What error message should we get when this breaks? should say goodbye. But it said, whatever it said, let's add the message here. Something like that. And then we should just verify that message contains something. Why? What's wrong here? It should contain goodbye. Something like that. Okay, so something is broken here. Let's start with, because contains is red, but let me start by importing assert true. Like that. And then let me think about what is the problem with message. This string is not the string I wanted to import. Import string. No, don't import anything. What are you doing? There. And then this method contains is defined. Okay. Okay, then we're looking for this email address should be unsubscribed. Okay, so let's catch this address like that. And let's not call this method something very similar to my email address. What are we looking for here? Well, we are looking for that this subscriber isn't subscribing anymore. So we're looking for something assert false, perhaps. Assert false that subscriptions is subscribing and this address, that should be false. So what message do I want to see when it breaks? I would like to see that this address should not be a subscriber, perhaps. Is subscribing doesn't exist, so let's create that method. Void address, yes. I'm asserting for true or false, so this one has to return a Boolean. Okay. Well, this doesn't really work yet because I have to import assert false, static method import false. We have something yellow here. Why? What is that? Probably an unused import. There we go. Now we have a green dot. This will compile, and when it compiles, just chip it. But before we do that, let's try to run this and see what happens. Okay, so not very surprising. It's not implemented properly. Right, so let's do something here that will subscribe and unsubscribe. What should subscribe do? Well, it should return, or it should validate the email address. But before we do that, we would like to store it somewhere, and then we would like to remove it here, and then we would like to check if it's available here. Okay. And validating this email address, well, it's not easy to understand why we should say welcome when we validate. It would be better if we said this is valid or this is invalid. So this one is kind of broken. But let's do something about it. Let's start with storing. No, let's not start there. Let's start with validating the email address. So if this is a valid email address, validate that address, And if that one is true, then let's return some kind of message. No, let's store it and then return some kind of message. So just because I said it in that order, I'm not going to do it in that order. Return something, but before we do that, store it somewhere. And let's store this. Email address should be unique, so let's store it in the private set that contains strings at the moment that I call subscribers. And let's start with creating this one like that. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Not this, not like that. Let's use a hash set. Something like that. Okay. If that one is true, then subscribers, subscribers. Let's do an add with the address, like that, and return this one. But if that isn't valid, then we should return this error message. So if this doesn't really work out, then let's do this. But this one is returning, is not returning a Boolean, so we could do a return true. And then do a return false. Okay. And this one has to be a Boolean. Perfect. Not really. I think we can simplify this, and I think that idea will help me in like 1 second. Simplify. Yes. So we can do this. That's enough. Now we'll store this one. Unsubscribe should be to do subscribers and remove this address. Is subscribing? Well, that's just checking subscribers contains this object like that. So this is a very small implementation, and it's red, and I don't know why at the moment. Missing return statement. We are supposed to say goodbye as well. Okay, so we can only say goodbye if this is a valid user. So we could do if subscribers, no, not subscribers. If this one is subscribing, then we should do something and remove it. So we should do return a message. Goodbye, email address. Otherwise, I'm not sure what to do. No, if we're unsubscribing to something that wasn't valid, then we should perhaps not do anything. But at the moment, I don't even remember what I was thinking here, so let's return something. Because I don't remember what I was supposed to do here. Return no, that's not. Let's just remove this one if he or she is a subscriber, and let's return this one no matter what. This is probably not good enough. But it doesn't matter. We can change it later. It's easy to change. We have red dot. Still have a red dot. Why? Sorry? Thank you. It's nice to have people who has their brain turned on in the audience. All right. What will happen now? Will this work? No, we have pending exception. To do, implement me. What have we not implemented? Unsubscribe steps. Let's take a look. Okay, so we are subscribing. Unsubscribe. Assert true. I should get an error message if I try to unsubscribe. I should be unsubscribed. Okay, I should get an error message if I try to unsubscribe with an okay. Now I'd like to see my okay. It's good to have your cheat sheet with you. Let's do a little bit more here. If we're unsubscribing, then let's remove that one and let's return this one. And if not, let's say that this one is not. It's not unsubscribed. And this will happen when we get an address that is invalid. Okay? Something like that. Okay. So we should assert false. Should be unsubscribed. Is a subscriber, right? I should get an error message. And in what situation am I supposed to get this error message? I unsubscribe that one. Okay, and what should the error message look like? Don't remember. So what are we want? What would you like to see here? We would like to see a message. Should say goodbye. But it said. What would we like to see when we get an error message because we couldn't unsubscribe? Any ideas? Sorry? Address not subscriber? Yeah, why not? Should say address. Let's simplify this a little bit. Not a subscriber, but it said something else. Not a subscriber. Something like that. And should not be unsubscribed. Okay, so I have to catch this email address again. And I will do that with the group, like this. And let's catch this one in a parameter address. And let's verify using subscriptions. And is subscribing for this address. Should not be unsubscribed. This means that this should be a subscriber. This means that we should assert true, because we should not be unsubscribed. We should still be a subscriber, because we try to unsubscribe with a broken address. Assert true is subscribing. Address should still be a subscriber. Something like that. And what am I missing? Probably a semicolon. Yes. There we go. Okay, so let's run this and see where we end up. should say, but it said not unsubscribed. Not the subscriber. Okay. Not unsubscribed. Not the subscriber. Perhaps something like that. We have a green bar. Everything is working. How nice. So what did we do? Well, we added a new feature, unsubscribe, from our email marketing service.
Sorry,
Yeah.
are you sure? Because you deleted one of the when statements in the second scenario.
Yes.
So why is it the test passes?
They passes because these two, unsubscribe, I unsubscribe and I unsubscribe, they are equal if we don't take this part into consideration. So therefore we don't need one of them, because this will call the same method. That is the reason. And I see that I'm running out of time, so I have to pick up a little bit. We added some steps for this, and we...
Just give this step, this one step.
Because we already had a method that matched.
But you are missing one test case with wrong email address.
No.
You pass as a parameter.
I'm passing it as a parameter. I'm passing this one as a parameter. So if we don't take this part into consideration, but just take this part into consideration instead, this one is the same as this one. And therefore I can reuse that method. So, yeah, I'll have to say, please trust me. This is the reason why I could delete one of the when statements. And I also improved the subscriptions a little bit, quite a lot. So let's commit this. Add the unsubscription feature. And let's push this. Yes. And let's continue with the presentation. I know that there are things I would like to do here. I would, for example, but I don't have the time here. I have to skip some things that I had prepared. I don't want to use a string here. I would like to introduce a domain object. And I also don't want to see a set here. I would like to introduce an abstraction for a database. But we are supposed to stop at 45, and so I have 5 minutes left. And I will skip the rest of this implementation. It is available on GitHub if you're interested. And I will continue with the presentation a little bit to wrap things up. And if you're interested in more details, this example, the slides, and the source will be available on my blog, on GitHub, and on SlideShare afterwards, as I say here. And I say soon because this is just a draft. There's more stuff that should be done here. Okay, so we discussed why you should do BDD, how you can do it, and the next question is, when should you do it? Should you always do this, or are there situations where you shouldn't do it? And the question, the answer is that doesn't always apply. This is not a new silver bullet, because silver bullets don't exist. I'm not sure if you've heard about a concept called Canevin, and it's actually spelled with this way, and it's Welsh. And there's a guy called Dave Snowden who has come up with this. He wants to divide the world into 4 different types of problems. So there are the simple ones, where it's very clear what the effect and cause and effect is. You do something and you do something, and you respond. There's a best practice on how you do things here. There is also the complicated part, where you do stuff, analyze it, and then you respond. There are good practices here. Then there are the more complicated stuff, which is complex. We don't know the connection between cause and effect here. So you do something, you try to react, but you don't know how. This is where we do experiments. This is where we do spikes. And then there's a fourth one, chaotic. This is when things are broken. This is a fire. This may not end well for you. You can die here if you're in a fire. In that case, you will probably act and then see what happens. This is where we haven't been here before. This is a horrible place to be. Behavior-driven development fits in the upper right corner, where we know that stuff has been done. We know basically how it should be done. It is not a good tool to do a spike with. There are better tools for that. So BDD works in some situations, but not every situation. And remember that Cucumber is a communication tool. We have looked at the technical parts of it, but it's actually a tool for communication more than anything else. And it's great for some classes of problems, but it's not great for everything. So, once again, not a new silver bullet. And with that, thank you very much for listening. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask me. Thank you. We have a question. Oh, lights are so sharp so I can't see.
I have some questions, because I have some concerns about using Cucumber. Because a lot of business requirements involve the examples which you presented. For example, some validation error should occur or something like that. But for example, in Spring MVC, I will have validation which will be provided by GSR. So I won't implement anything of this by myself. So to test this, I would have to make, for example, some mock-ups or using some servers like Selenium or something like that. So other thing is that these messages can be localized. So if I have some business delegate which return true or false, I will have some implementation details involved in these descriptions, feature descriptions. So how to deal with it?
Well, the localization part, at least, is you could solve that by creating a feature that says that when we use the site in Polish and we have a successful case, suppose that we were able to buy something, I don't know, then we should get this. And then we should verify for this message. And that's possible to express. I'm not sure if this is the best way to do things, but it's possible. Your other concerns there about stuff in Spring sounded like very much like an implementation detail. You would like to work on a higher level. And it's possible that verifying that implementation detail fits a lot better if you use a unit test or something similar. So this may not be the case where you should use Cucumber. It may be the case where you should use a unit.
Okay.
So you would like to use a mix of them. This is not either or, it's both. I was actually planning to prepare an example where I took these features and implemented the same thing on top of a web application, but that would have taken yet another hour, and it would have been more a tutorial in web framework instead of anything else, so I didn't even do that. But it's possible to take these requirements and then just change the step definitions, so we're verifying web application instead of verifying, in this case, a backend system. That's possible. Any other questions? No? Let's head for lunch then. Thank you very much for listening.